In a major boost to India's zero-carbon mission, the World Bank has sanctioned a $1.5 billion loan to finance the country's development of low-carbon energy. In a press statement, the organization said that the financing is aimed at helping India in scaling up renewable energy, developing green hydrogen and stimulating climate finance for low-carbon energy investments. India intends to achieve the net zero goal by 2070. World Bank's program is expected to aid the implementation of the National Green Hydrogen Mission. To discuss the contours of the program, we're now joined by Auguste Tano Kouame, World Bank Country Director for India. Mr. Kouame, thank you very much for joining us. Give us a sense of the contours, the pillars of this $1.5 billion funding program for India's renewable energy transition.
Thank you very much. As you said, India is very committed to achieving net zero by 2070. And this program that we just approved yesterday for $1.5 billion called Low Carbon Development Policy Operation is to support India's transition to its own net zero goal. And to do that, the operations has three pillars. The first pillar is to support green hydrogen development, which was well established in the National Green Hydrogen Mission launched earlier this year. To do that, under the first pillar, the operation will be supporting how government is encouraging demand for green hydrogen, as well as supporting production of green hydrogen by reducing costs and closing viability gaps funding. The second pillar of the operation is to support renewable energy. We all know that green hydrogen requires renewable energy, and therefore the second pillar will also boost demand and supply for renewable energy, such as solar, for example, where India has invested a lot and has made a lot of progress, but additional production for renewable energy is needed to support the green hydrogen mission. The third pillar is, we all know that it's important to bring in private sector and green finance to support production of renewable energy and green hydrogen. So the third pillar of the operation will do exactly that. It will help launch the carbon market, as well as boosting private sector investment into renewable energy.
Right. India had announced a $2.3 billion program for green hydrogen and electrolyzer manufacturing in the month of January. How much of this $1.5 billion funding program that you have now announced will go towards India's green hydrogen mission directly in the form of incentives, or is the latest announcement that you're talking about over and above what the Indian government has already announced?
The operation is a development policy loans, which means that it supports policies and regulations. It does not provide direct financing for specific expenditure items. We providing $1.5 billion to support the government's broader green hydrogen mission, but not just that. As you heard me mention earlier, the operation will also support the scaling up of renewable energy other than green hydrogen, as well as boosting green finance and private sector investment into renewable energy as well as green hydrogen. So whilst we don't make a direct link between the financing of the operation and the cost of the National Green Hydrogen Mission, we're very happy that the $1.5 billion operation will support the broader development of green hydrogen, renewable energy, and green finance in India.
Right. Today, the government has formally rolled out schemes for incentivizing manufacturing of green hydrogen and electrolyzers. How do you think these incentives that the government has come out with compare to incentives from other countries?
Yeah, we have looked at how countries are developing green hydrogen. You know, green hydrogen is a very new technology, but a number of countries are looking into it in developed countries as well as in developing countries. And we're very proud at the World Bank for having launched what we call Hydrogen for Development Initiative at COP27. And this gives us a framework of how we see green hydrogen technology being developed, especially in developing country context. And in fact, the day before the board approved the $1.5 billion low carbon energy program for India, our board also approved a similar operation for Chile. And the idea behind these operations is that there will be sufficient boost or support for renewable energy so that green hydrogen can tap into the renewable energy supply without affecting countries' ability to meet the NDCs, whereby they also want to improve renewable energy production for direct electricity consumption. The second thing, where we think the government mission is consistent with where we see the technology going, is the importance of supporting demand. Because if demand is not strong enough, investors will have doubt as to whether their production will be taken up, whether there will be some off-take risks. And the third thing is to provide viability gap funding, because it's a new technology and there are some hesitations or uncertainty on the part of investors. So the government incentive scheme that we've seen is very consistent with what we see as the way to go to boost this new technology, especially in developing countries.
Right. Your statement also speaks about this $1.5 billion funding being the first step of 2 envisaged operations. What will be the next announcement, and when will the next step towards India's energy transition be made by the World Bank?
We hope to have a long-term engagement with the government of India on renewable energy and green hydrogen in particular. Green hydrogen is a new technology. It's just being launched in many countries, including India. For us, we see this operation as the first in a series of programs and projects to support the government of India's agenda. In the specific case of the operation that we approved yesterday, there will be a second phase. We don't know when the exact timing of the second phase will be. It will be determined by the preferences of the government of India and the World Bank jointly. But we do hope that this operation is not a one-off engagement. We hope it will be a long-term engagement between the World Bank and India.
Right. The World Bank has also been working on a global alliance on green hydrogen, and they have been very closely coordinating and speaking to the Indian government about this. Could you give us a sense of what will be India's role in this alliance and what will be this alliance aimed towards?
Well, thank you. First of all, let me say that India is part of this alliance, and in fact, after launching the initiative at COP27, we have had our first and only meeting so far of the Hydrogen for Development Initiative, and that meeting took place in India. So it shows that India is in the lead in making this Hydrogen for Development a very useful initiative for members. And the objective of the Hydrogen for Development initiative is first to facilitate knowledge exchange between countries on the technology and the innovation, and we hope that India will play a role in sharing its own experience with other countries that will come later on into the green hydrogen industry or movement. The second thing that the Hydrogen for Development initiative aims to do is to help mobilize financing for green hydrogen in members of the initiative. And we've done just that with the World Bank own financing and supported by also other sources of funding. We hope that the alliance will be delivering for India as well as for other member countries. So India has been a very active member of the Hydrogen for Development, and we appreciate India's contribution so far.
Right. What are some of the steps that India needs to take in order to encourage companies to switch to using green hydrogen manufacturing? Do we need certain mandates? How do you think India will benefit with greater use of green hydrogen in manufacturing, and which are the sectors where you see an implementation of this scheme in the near future?
Well, first of all, it's very important to recognize that the development of green hydrogen will be driven by costs. And, as we had seen in India for the solar energy, when costs come down, the private sector gets into adopting the technology. When uncertainties are removed, the private sector gets interested in adopting the technology. So what the program is aiming to do here is to provide initial support for reducing the viability gaps funding, therefore some element of subsidy to help reduce cost. Secondly, encouraging demand so that with demand there will be greater supply, and with that the cost will also come down. And there will be also some discovery of technology, so there will be continuous learning through research and development, which the National Green Hydrogen Mission will also support. And with this combination, the private sector will increasingly adopt the industry. Now, I should also mention that financing is also a very important part. So the third pillar of the operation, which will help mobilize private financing, will also help the private sector adopt the technology on the production side. On the usage side, the private sector will also, industries and manufacturing will be driven by prices. If the price of green hydrogen is competitive, they will adopt it, and we think that they might even adopt it without additional mandate. So, we need to watch how the technology goes and how the prices and costs evolve, and then see whether there are additional needs for actions to stimulate demand or supply.
Right. Mr. Auguste Tano Kouame, thank you so much for joining us, telling us about the $1.5 billion funding program that the World Bank has launched for India's renewable energy transition and the importance of the green hydrogen mission as well. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.